What's up guys, MikeCoco back here, bringing you guys a new video on the new content update for Legion of Heroes. It's been around 5 or 6 days since the patch happened, and there were two major changes, one of which is the bounty hunt change and the introduction of new tower floors. So with the last patch, they increased the difficulty of bounty hunt. They didn't add any modes, all they did was increase the difficulty of the current modes. And based on playing a little bit of Bounty Hunt in the last few days, it's kind of possible to say that the current mode, Hell, is probably equivalent to pre-patch Mythic. So essentially, the highest level of Bounty Hunt pre-patch is probably equivalent to Hell. I say this because me and a lot of my guildmates are able to auto through Hell fairly easily, pretty much as we were able to do in Mythic mode pre-patch. And Hell, honestly, like without even getting new gear, it's doable on auto. So I think Hell is probably equivalent to pre-patch Mythic. Legend is a bit more difficult. You can auto through it, maybe like the first boss, but the rest of the bosses I recommend manualing. The power range I would recommend at this point is somewhere around 25 mil. That's where my team is at, and even then you can have some problems with it. Specifically, I think one of the bosses on the last like BH4 Legend, I just didn't have enough DPS to finish it off because they hit really hard. So Legend is definitely a lot harder, and you will need to manual. It's doable for free to play, but you definitely should get help. And co-op is obviously a good choice. So if you're co-oping, I think two relatively strong free-to-play players can do it. If you're soloing and you're a free-to-play player, it might be a bit difficult. And I would revert back to Hell mode if you are struggling with Legend. And Mythic mode is pretty much you definitely need to co-op. I don't know. I think one of my guildmates who's probably the strongest person in our guild and is like I think like top 100 in the game. He struggles with Mythic too. I think he dies at like BH3 or something. I don't remember, but you definitely need at least two very strong players. So that's pretty much it for Mythic. Bounty Hunt. What I recommend in the new Bounty Hunt mode is to get shield and get DPS. That's pretty much how you should be running it, because even with Michael, who has an extremely powerful shield, and also your main, their shields get broken really easily, even in Legend and Mythic mode. So it's highly recommended that you get like the new gear, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But essentially, for the new Bounty Hunt, the setup I'm using right now for Legend is something similar to this. So I just have a shield around my main or my primary heroes. So I have Michael for drawing aggro and shielding. I have the main for shielding, and then I have single target Fury Thief, obviously, a cleanser because the dots from the bosses and the mobs actually deal a lot of damage in Legend and Mythic. They can pretty much one-shot. So you definitely need to have the 2-turn cleanse. A 1-turn cleanse simply isn't enough. And a damage dealer, I would probably sub in Claire because even with like Lucida, if you don't crit, it takes at least like 2 hits, maybe even 3, to actually even like kill a mob sometimes. So I'd probably put in Claire for that because if Lucida doesn't crit, you're pretty much done. You're not going to be dealing too much damage. Prince Arthur deals decent damage from my experience, a little bit less than Michael. He can probably do like 70%, maybe 60% of Michael's damage, but significantly more than Lucida without crit. So that's why I put him there. And otherwise, it's just like normal stuff to buff melee and to help Michael proc his spear. So that is pretty much it for Bounty Hunt. It is difficult, and co-op is highly recommended. They changed it so that now if you perform co-op mode, both players will receive the rewards. Previously, I think it's like the person who invites, so the invitee, I guess, would not get the reward, but now both the inviter and the invitee can get the rewards from Bounty Hunt, which is, I don't know, it's a pretty nice change. And before we go to tower, I do want to comment on the new change to the boxes. They also changed the boxes from Bounty Hunt, obviously, because they made it harder. and you no longer get like the lower level medals. You can get powder, glittering bravey medals, rank 6 gear, and season 2 rank 1 gear. I'm not sure if you can get anything else. I just haven't opened a lot of it yet, but it seems like that's all you get. There's not too much variation going on. No, rune essence or anything good like that. So yeah, I mean it's decent. You definitely will need it. Even rank 6 gear at this point is not enough to do legend mode. I would recommend at least season 2 gear. So there is that, and the next thing I want to talk about is tower. So tower floors 71, I think 71 to 100 have been added, and you can get radiant gear from this. I'm sure somebody has already posted the tower floors where you can get specific weapons. If not, I'll probably like compile it sooner or later. The key things to note is that tomes are no longer on a difficult floor, so they're on like 82. So you can actually farm tomes now, which is fairly useful. One other thing to note is that in the Korean version of the game, at least, level 100 is the last mode in hard mode tower. So this could potentially mean the end of tower gear. Don't quote me on that because I am not too in the Korean Legion of Heroes game right now, so I don't know if there's like other gear that exceeds tower gear. But I can say for sure that Tower 100 is probably the end of hard mode tower. So we're probably gonna see a new mode sooner or later once people can start consistently clearing floor 100. By the way, floor 100 is ridiculously difficult. Floor 85 is like the only reason I SS this, I think, was because I had like the first few rounds you get friend heroes to help you. Otherwise, I have like a 50% success rate on that floor, which is absolutely ridiculous. The higher tower floors pretty much actively reflect the change in difficulty to bounty hunt. It's really, really difficult. I would recommend getting a spear from Michael, but it's on floor, I think 80. Or is it 80? I forgot which floor it's on, but it's on a higher, I think it's on a boss floor too, actually. And you can't actually, it's on a boss floor and you can't actually farm it because you need to survive a lot of turns. So it's quite difficult. So I guess just take your time. I do want to say that the S2 gear or level 140 gear is actually, it's good for now, but in my personal opinion, I always view tower gear as sort of like temporary gear, except if you're running them on like kind of proc-based heroes like Michael or PA. The reason why is because even though the stats are good, like this is like 140 at what is it? Level 10, and then this is level 15 S2 rank 1. It's like 1,000 attack difference, which is absolutely huge. I don't know why they didn't release season 2 rank 2 gear, because usually they release it like together so that one is not extremely overpowered. Right now there really is no incentive to use season 2 rank 1 because 140 gear is simply better, at least in terms of weapons. In armor, that might not be the case because armor has reduced stats. Let's see if I can find one. I don't know if I have. I generally don't recommend using tower armor because the stats they provide is fairly limited. Like defense, it only goes up to like I think 30% on tower gear, while it goes up to 50% on what is it? The legendary and mythic gear. So if you are having trouble with tower, I would recommend at least getting like a set of 140 gear just to equip for now. Don't invest too heavily into it, because it's not going to be the end all be all kind of gear. I would, at least get it to SS level 10, maybe even level 15 for the active proc, just so you can like use it to climb the floors. But I would definitely still stick with legend and mythic gear, especially if you invest into it. And just a side note, I think that level 15 is when the active proc actually happens. A lot of people have been saying it's like level 20 or something, but I distinctly remember the number 15 for some reason, and it actually makes a lot of sense because while I don't really recommend or like taking anecdotes as the proof or evidence, Level 12 Dispel debuff is, if you consider 15 as the base, it's 80% success rate. But if you pair him with Zhao Yun's skill, which is a 20% increase in weapon activation, it means that it's essentially 100%. And I have never seen Michael miss. Now, obviously, again, this is an anecdote, and I'm going off track here. But anyways, I do think that level 15 is the active proc when it becomes 100%. Anyways, that's it for tower. Farming it, quite difficult, so just take your time. It will kill a lot of resources. I think I'm down to like 30k runes or something, or I used up like 30k runes just to get like a few swords to level 10, which is kind of annoying, but this is a Korean MMO and the grind's always going to be there. And the last thing I want to talk about, I think, is Explore. They actually released floor 7, which is, it's kind of expected, kind of not really expected. It's in the sense that a lot of people finish 6-10, and from what I've heard, people are actually like timing, because the way it works in Explore is that the faster you complete it, the higher your rank is. So when everybody can finish 6-10, they record your rank based on how quickly you can clear it from when it resets. So it kind of became like a race, and I guess it makes sense to release floor 7, although a lot of people still can't actually get to floor, like they can't even finish floor 6. Me, myself, is an example. The best I've gotten is up to 1 mil. I'm still lacking that a little bit. But as you can see, top 200 right now as free to play in Explore. So I think like I'm very close to finishing 6-10. I'm literally only like 100k HP away, or 100 mil, and I think once I pick up another mythic hero from the box, I will be able to clear 6-10. So be prepared for a floor 6 video. I do want to get that out. I think it is definitely possible as free to play, but it is ridiculously annoying because random RNG stuns and silences kind of frustrate you, but it is possible. So I do want to do that as soon as possible. The mythic raid videos will have to get postponed a little bit, but I'm still working on that. And I think that's it for this update. There's not much else I want to talk about. Other stuff is just paid stuff, which is not really applicable to everyone, so I'm not going to talk about that. It's been actually a while since I made one of these update videos, so I do want to talk about other features that I missed in like the last few months when I was away. So you guys do know I talked about the limit break feature with doppelgangers, and even though it's late now because the Transcendence update, or the hiring, or let me rephrase that, the Transcendence Up event has already ended, you can in fact actually use doppelgangers to transcend your heroes. So when you want them, rank them up from A to S and S to SS or whatever, that works with doppelgangers. So if you're low on legendary essence, or for whatever reason, you can pick these up, because you get a lot of these, and honestly, unless you have a lot of gold, it's very unlikely you'll be using all of this, because it costs, I think, like around 300 mil to level one hero from 100 to 125, and that's not even considering the amount of essence you need. So if you do have heroes that are lying around that need to be transcended, feel free to use doppelgangers. And I think that is pretty much it. New costumes are released. I will cover that in a little bit later, and probably in a later video because it's getting kind of late right now. And I think that is pretty much it. Oh yeah, rune essence update. Well, not really update, it's kind of like a shop thing, but it kind of ties into something I never talked about really. There's like a rune essence thing going on. It's like a monthly rune coupon, so you get like 200 rune essence every day, which is, it's pretty nice. Certainly helps because reinforcing is really painful. One thing I want to mention that apparently like a lot of people didn't know, I thought it was like spread by word of mouth or something, but I guess not. The way you can increase the weapon, or not weapon, but passive inscription, is basically once you get to level 15 on legendary or mythic gear. So either if you use essence from, like, I usually use essence from 12 to 15, because from 12 to 15 you can fail like a bunch of times. I wouldn't recommend going 12 to 15 without essence unless you have a huge amount of resources, like if you have a lot of gold, a lot of rune powder, a lot of what's it called, runes as well. if you don't have a lot of that, I would recommend using Essence to get to 15, and then after 15, you can kind of, in a way, not use Rune Essence. And what I mean by that is, once you hit 15, if you try to go to 16, if you fail it, your level doesn't drop. Instead, your item breaks, and I think you have like 10 or is it 15 repairs at what's the guy's face called? Dennis. Yeah, so he can repair your broken items. It's 15 times. It's like cut off here, but it gets really expensive. It's like 2 to the power of the number of times you fail, or the number of times it's already been broken. So that is one way you can level up without Rune Essence. I think like my Lysita's gun has been like broken like 6 or 7 times. Wait, or is it Claire's gun? I forgot. It's like broken like 6 or 7 times. So essentially what I did was like I think I got it to like 15, and then I just randomly tried without Rune Essence, and it actually worked a few times. The problem is like once you get to like 8 or 9, it gets really expensive. So it's probably recommended that you repair less than probably like 7 times would probably be the max that I would go to. I think 7 costed me like 400 something mil, maybe 500 mil. So it's a lot of money. So unless you have a lot of gold, I wouldn't recommend it. But pretty much once you get to 15, the level stops dropping. So that's important to note. This doesn't really apply to tower gear, so whatever I just said about Rune Essence doesn't apply for tower gear. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Just, you know, stay on the grind, get the new tower gear. It'll probably help you in BH, and you can slowly work your way up the towers. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Peace.